Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for our annual summer NSF-GRFP application preparation series. Today is the first installment where we will have a general overview of the National Science Foundation Fellowship for graduate students. So today we'll learn a little bit about what it is, the eligibility, the application components, and we'll go through some frequently asked questions at the end. And then upon completion, we'll have time for your questions. I will also drop at the end this presentation into the chat for you to have immediately, but as mentioned, this will be put online with the recording. So we'll go ahead and jump in. What we'll cover is what is NSF-GRFP. I know some of you were recommended by my office or by your faculty mentor or your graduate advisor to attend. And so some of you might be asking that question, what is the NSF-GRFP? We'll go over the fellowship benefits, eligibility and the eligible STEM fields, application components, application tips and reminders, and we will end with frequently asked questions. So what is the NSF-GRFP? This is one of the oldest federally funded student subsidization programs. So it's older than Pell Grant, older than loans and federal work study and such. And it is designed to ensure the vitality of human resources in science. The program does recognize and supports outstanding graduate students in STEM-supported science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines. An important note here is NSF does not compete with other federal agencies. So this is very STEM focused, not healthcare focused. That is National Institutes of Health. But there's some gray space, particularly in the biomedical area, which we'll talk about. This is one of the oldest fellowships of its kind and has a long history of selecting recipients who achieve high levels of success in future academic and professional careers, as well as becoming leaders in their academic discipline and in general. The NSF is very proud to say that probably about 40 Nobel laureates were previously NSF-GRFP participants, as well as Secretary of State, Google founder, among many other college presidents, college deans, and other leaders in industry and in public service. So this is a rather rarefied program, we might say. What are the benefits? Well, this is a 5-year fellowship that comes with 3 years of funding. And I get questions, why 3 years of funding over a 5-year fellowship? Well, that's an excellent question that you might be asking yourself. Many programs at the graduate level will have certain requirements, such as you must work in a lab for so much time because that is career and skill building, or you must teach for a year or a semester or a period of time as part of your PhD and professional training. So this would allow you to save the benefit of your fellowship, the not having to work a job for the years when you need it most, such as some students will reserve that for once they pass their quals and comps and are starting their research. Others will use it right at the beginning while they establish themselves and get their feet wet. So it could go in a lot of different directions how you use that 3 years of funding out of a 5-year fellowship. So the 3 years of funding comes with $37,000 a year in a stipend, which is paid out monthly, tuition coverage during those 3 years, career life balance. So if you need family or medical leave from your fellowship, that can be paid up to a certain point, and access to other professional development opportunities, namely the NSF intern program. Some additional benefits that the University of Utah provides for you is we will cover your health insurance during your 3 years of funding. And for those 3 years, we will also provide $2,000 each year to cover your research expenses and professional development. So to go to conferences, to buy equipment for your research project, to fund travel to go do your data collection, what have you, that $2,000 a year for 3 years, so $6,000 in total, can be used towards those different expenses that you may be incurring as a graduate student. And then some faculty advisors do offer additional fellowship bonuses. for students who bring in their own funding, especially something like the NSF-GRFP. And that's pretty common at a lot of institutions outside of the University of Utah. Other important benefits of the GRFP is this is a mobile fellowship. So if you apply at the University of Utah and you decide you want to go to grad school at MIT, you can take this to MIT or UCLA or University of South Carolina or wherever you choose to go, as long as you are at a United States institution, accredited institution, and in an eligible STEM research-based STEM graduate program. So those are really the requirements, which still leaves you hundreds of institutions to choose from. Okay, occasionally this can help provide you a step up in graduate admissions. A lot of times when students are waitlisted, this is what moves them off the wait list and into being admitted, or even students who've been denied admission due to a really competitive application pool. This can get you in the door in a lot of cases. The GRFP, as we saw with the what is the GRFP, this does offer you prestige and recognition. You are in a rarefied group of fellows, and that is a distinction that does stay with you for quite some time. I work with a number of faculty who 30 years ago were NSF-GRFPs, and even though they've done many illustrious things, that is still something that is very important to their professional persona. This does boost your resume and CV. So if you choose a career outside of the academy, so outside of teaching, outside of research, this can be a help both in industry as well as in academia. And now this is particularly important for those of you who are considering careers in academia. This does establish a pattern of seeking and getting, hopefully getting, external funding. When you go into a professorship and you have your own lab and you're bringing in students to work in your lab, you're going to be expected to apply for those 6- or 7-figure grants from the NIH, from NASA, from the DOE, from the NIH to fund your lab. And this sets you apart in that process by building those skills now, which can be a huge help in the job market. To be eligible for the NSF-GRFP, you must be a United States citizen, national, or permanent resident. I get a question every cycle, or multiple questions every cycle about, well, here's my unique case. Can I still have this even though I'm not a citizen, national, or permanent resident? No, this is a federally funded and federally managed program. Therefore, I have no ability to negotiate on the eligibility. That is a hard and fast rule of the NSF. You must be a rising senior or a first or second year graduate student at the time of application. Application is due in October. So if in October you are a senior planning to go to grad school next year, or you are a first or second year graduate student, you are eligible. If you have had some significant time off, more than 2 years, since you left a grad program and you're resuming that, you would then be eligible as well. Those are some unique cases. Happy to talk one-on-one through your individual scenarios. Really important, non-traditional students are welcome and becoming a larger part of the awardee base. Non-traditional students are. So if you feel like you fit in that non-traditional place where you're not that 23, 24-year-old individual going into graduate school, but you may have spent some time in the industry, or going through a career pivot or what have you, you are encouraged to please apply as well, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. And you must be enrolled or intend to enroll in a research-based master's or doctorate in an eligible STEM field. And that must be by the start of the fellowship year. So if you're a rising senior in October of this year, that means that in fall of 2024, you must be in a graduate program then. You do not have to be a graduate program, in a graduate program to apply. Okay, so we mentioned eligible STEM fields. I'm going to go through this, and it's going to be a little onerous, but as we go through these eligible STEM fields slides, I hope you're finding and identifying with where you fit in. Really importantly, before I go through these slides, For the most part, you might be a chemistry student and you'll see your research is in nanochemistry. Perfect. That matches the program you're in and the research. But you might be a biology student and you're doing a research project that is best described as chemical measurement and imaging. I'm not a chemist. I'm in the social sciences, so bear with me here. You might identify with a panel, so chemistry, in a subfield, such as artificial intelligence under chemistry or what have you, that differs from the program that you're enrolled in. That is rarer, but that is also okay. So as we get to the end of this series of slides, I hope you will identify both with a panel like chemistry and a subsection such as sustainable chemistry or quantum information science. Okay, so now we're going to jump in chemistry. Artificial intelligence, chemical catalyst, chemical measurement and imaging, chemical structure, dynamics and mechanism, chemical synthesis, chemical theory, models and computational methods, chemistry of life processes, computational intensive research, environmental chemical systems, macromolecular, supramolecular, and nanochemistry. Other, this is where you would specify, I'm doing something chemistry related, and it's very unique in its niche area that does not fit here. So that could be you, as well as quantum information science and sustainable chemistry. Okay. Computer and information science and engineering. So this is not engineering in a broader sense, but engineering as it relates to computer and info science. Algorithms and theoretical foundations, artificial intelligence, bioinformatics and other informatics, communication and information theory, computational science and engineering, computationally intensive research, computer architecture, computer networks, computer security, computer security and privacy, computer systems and embedded systems, data mining and information retrieval, data science, databases, formal methods, verification and programming languages, graphics and visualization, human computer interaction, machine learning, natural language processing, other. Quantum computing and communication, quantum information science, robotics and computer vision, and software engineering. Now, engineering in a broader sense, aeronautical and aerospace engineering, artificial intelligence, bioengineering, biomedical engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, computationally intensive research, computer engineering, electrical and electronic engineering, energy engineering, environmental engineering, industrial engineering and operations research, manufacturing engineering, materials engineering, mechanical engineering, nuclear engineering, ocean engineering, optical engineering, other, quantum engineering, quantum information science, systems engineering, wireless engineering. Geoscience, so aeronomy, artificial intelligence, atmospheric chemistry, biogeochemistry, biological oceanography, chemical oceanography, climate and large-scale atmospheric dynamics, computationally intensive research, geobiology, geochemistry, geodynamics, geomorphology, geophysics, glaciology, hydrology, magnetospheric physics, marine biology, marine geology and geophysics, other, paleoclimate, paleontology and paleobiology, petrology, physics and dynamic meteorology, physical oceanography, quantum information science, sedimentary geology, solar physics, and tectonics. Life sciences, artificial intelligence, biochemistry, bioinformatics, and computational biology, biophysics, cell biology, computationally intensive research, developmental biology, ecology, environmental biology, evolutionary biology, genetics, genomics, microbial biology, neurosciences, organismal biology, other, physiology, proteomics, quantum information science, structural biology, systematics and biodiversity, systems and molecular biology. Materials research, artificial intelligence, biomaterials, ceramics, chemistry of materials, computationally intensive research, electronic materials, materials theory, metallic materials, other, photonic materials, physics of materials, polymers, quantum information sciences as related to materials research, mathematical sciences, algebra, number theory, and moving on. Analytics, applied mathematics, artificial intelligence, biostatistics, computational and data-enabled science, computational mathematics, computational statistics, computationally intensive research, geometric analysis, logic or foundations of mathematics, mathematical biology, other, probability, quantum information science, statistics and topology, physics and astronomy, artificial intelligence, astronomy and astrophysics, atomic, molecular, and optical physics, computationally intensive research, condensed matter physics, nuclear physics, other, particle physics, physics of living systems, plasma physics, quantum information science, solid state physics, and theoretical physics. Psychology. Now we're getting into the social sciences. Artificial intelligence, cognitive neuroscience, cognitive psychology, comparative psychology, computational psychology, computationally intensive research, developmental psychology, industrial organizational psychology, neuropsychology, other, perception and psychophysics, personality and individual differences, psychological psychology or physiological psychology, psycholinguistics, quantitative psychology, quantum information science, social affective neurology, and social psychology, broader social sciences, including anthropology, other, archaeology, artificial intelligence, biological anthropology, communications, computationally intensive research, cultural anthropology, decision-making and risk analysis, economics, geography, history and physics, or history and philosophy of science, international relations, law and social science, linguistic anthropology, linguistics, medical anthropology, other, political science, public policy, quantum information science, science policy, sociology, and urban and regional planning, and STEM education and learning research, artificial intelligence, computationally intensive research, engineering education, mathematics education, other, quantum information science, science education, and technology education. Really important on STEM education to point out here, this is not, I'm getting my master's degree to go into the public school system to teach math. Rather, this is, I'm studying the teaching of mathematics and how, and my research will relate to how to better teach mathematics, how to better communicate mathematics. So that's kind of the important differentiator there on STEM education. So hopefully you've all found your niche in there. If you have questions on this is a good time, or will be a good thing for you to talk one-on-one with a fellowship advisor like me or with your faculty mentor. So we talked about who is eligible, who isn't eligible. Joint science and professional degree programs such as JD PhD or MD PhD. The NSF does not want to support students who are splitting their focus between 2 degree programs. They want you to focus on doing the best research in one area, in that master's or PhD. Business administration or management degrees, counseling, social work, history, except for the history of science, education, except for STEM education, and other professional programs such as public health, public administration, legal sciences, library sciences, and other similar professional programs, including healthcare, audiology, physical therapy, physician assistant, etc., all not eligible. Research within disease-related goals. The exception here is biomedical engineering. Clinical research, which includes patient-oriented research, epidemiological and medical behavioral studies, outcomes research, health services research. Ineligible studies also include pharmacy and pharmacological and non-pharmacological studies and behavioral interventions for disease or disorder prevention, therapies and treatments, and similar research. A caveat here, though. For example, the NSF does not support clinical research such as patient-oriented research. However, that can still be a broader outcome. So you might be studying a new way of studying neuroscience, how to conduct neurological research that may be utilized as a broader impact by those doing neurological studies with patient-oriented research. So you're not the one doing patient-oriented research, but that could be a broader outcome of how your research is impacting other scientists out there. So there's that differentiation there as well. Okay, so hopefully we all know where we fit in here. And now we'll go through the application components. There are three primary sections here: transcripts, statements, two different statements, and reference letters. Transcripts must be on your application for any institution that you have attended, even if you did not graduate. So your baccalaureate institution, your graduate institutions that you've attended. If you've attended a community college, or you attended a four-year institution that you did not graduate from, you transferred to another institution, all of those transcripts must be included. If you are applying, if October 2023 is your first semester in graduate school, you have no graduate school transcript. So in this case, an enrollment verification form is sufficient to note that you are attending the University of Utah in such and such graduate program with such and such enrollment. And the place you would find that enrollment verification form is also from the registrar's office, which is where at your respective institutions you would find access to your transcripts. Personal statement and graduate research plan statement, the two required statements. In these, you must discuss broader impacts and intellectual merit. And this must be done under a specific heading. Applications missing both concepts and on each statement, and without a heading is important, without a subhead that says broader impacts and intellectual merit, will be returned to you without review. That's a recent change in the formatting requirements that came about just a couple of years ago. And it is very serious. You do need to have a header on your paper that says broader impacts and intellectual merit on both your personal statement and research plan statement. And you're going to hear me say this a lot today, because if you don't get the GRFP, I want it to be because the pool of applicants was just so competitive. It was a really hard decision for the reviewers, not because you missed a header. So on both of these statements, your personal statement and your graduate research plan statement, you will develop a consistent theme to weave together your personal story and your academic and career plans. Your personal statement, which is officially the personal, relevant background and future goals statement, is maximum of 3 pages, single space, 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, black font, all of the standard formatting here, all of which is listed in the solicitation. This is where you're going to tell your story. What motivates you? What drew you into your research? Why did you choose to pursue science? You're going to talk about 3 particular phases: your background, so where you've been leading up to college, where you are now, which includes your immediate future plans with graduate school, and then where you're going in the future. And that's not graduate school, it's what do the next 30 years look like for you? What sort of goals do you have as a scientist, as a professional and a researcher, and as a leader? This is not just a research funding opportunity here. This is a leadership development opportunity. So you want to talk about your leadership acumen and your leadership experience in and outside of science, and how you want to grow as a leader. You want to show how you've taken initiative or faced challenges, describe your project's contributions and your future goals, and again, label those intellectual merit and broader impacts sections. So you want to avoid narratives like, my grandmother died of cancer, so I decided to be a scientist. Reviewers, we see this all the time, and that does not tell us a story. But instead, you want to say something like, my grandmother's passing of cancer piqued my interest and curiosity in science, which led to studying chemistry in undergrad, which led to. So you're really showing the chain of events that led you down here. Not to say that you have to show and discuss that first spark and every domino after that, but you want to weave your story in to your narrative in the way that is best representative to you and relevant and fitting within the 3-page limit. You also want to avoid narratives like, I'm pursuing a career as a scientist because I want to change the world. I have to tell you, that is a line that we reviewers cringe reading, because why is being a scientist the way you're going to change the world? Why is that the best way for you to change the world? It's like saying, I want to be a doctor because I want to help people. Well, more than doctors help people. Arguably nurses do the bulk of the life-saving work there. Teachers, social workers, one might say lawyers doing all that community and pro bono work, and serving the underdog there. They're doing God's work. They're helping people as well. So you really need to describe why going down the path of science or engineering or biology is the best way for you to change the world. That's where you match your interest and your skills and acumen together for that lovely synergistic happy medium. So you want to use narratives more like, I'm pursuing a career as a scientist in let's say chemistry or physics, because it combines my interests with research and innovation with my skills and background in chemistry and physics. Highly watered down, but it gives you the proper illustration here. Okay, and next week, on Thursday next week, the 25th, we will be discussing personal statements specifically. So join us then, same time, same place. Now moving on to research plan statements. This is a smaller statement. It is 2 pages, single space, 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins, etc. This is where you're going to discuss your research idea. And that research plan, that research idea, the research you want to be conducting, you're going to give a brief background of it. What will your approach to that be? What methodologies do you plan to employ? And what are your predictions? Like what's your initial hypothesis as you're planning this project? Where are you hoping to discover or hoping to determine through your research? Describe what you expect to learn through your research project. Recognize, this is very, very important, recognize and describe the risk. What's your plan B if the project does not go as planned? The pandemic really showed us how important the plan B is here, because we had students going and doing research, and then their field research all got shut down because data collection sites and closed, archives and museums closed, government facilities closed. Other countries closed their borders and sent students back to the United States. So students had to reconfigure their research plans and determine, okay, what's the plan B to continue this same research project? A good example here I might have for you is I was working with an anthropology student who is utilizing dental records as part of her research. And she has a good relationship with an African country, with their research bureau, to get her hands on actual artifacts and work with the anthropologists and the paleontologists locally in that country to work on the actual dental remains. And so, but what if COVID happens again, or another worldwide health crisis or government relations become a concern here, and she's not allowed to go and participate hands-on with those artifacts? Well, her plan B is there is some existing dental records that I can download and analyze. Not as good, not as great, but it'll get the job done. So that's a plan B. Plan B is not X component might not work, so I have to completely come up with a new research plan. It's just, how are you going to pivot with the risky element to your research? And this shows maturity in your research. It shows that you're really looking at the what ifs. You're really thinking ahead to your research project. And this is also going to be where you talk about the evidence of how you think, how you approach research as a scientist, as a student. You want to make sure that your research plan is clear and well designed, and label your research plan's intellectual merit and broader impacts. and again, under a specific header on that page. So I've mentioned this a few times: intellectual merit, broader impacts. What are these? Intellectual merit is the potential to advance knowledge. This is where in your papers, you will discuss how your proposed research will advance knowledge and understanding in your particular field, but also in other fields. What's the interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary element of your research? And then we have broader impacts. This is the potential to impact society and contribute to the achievement of specific and desired societal outcomes. So how will your research that you're proposing here today benefit your local community? And local community is going to be defined a lot different for each of you, depending on where you collect your data from, what your project is. For some of you, local community might be Salt Lake City or the Great Salt Lake. Local community might be the Pacific Northwest. It might be a certain community of researchers or industry professionals. So on both of these, again, reflect on your application statements with specific heading labels. And this is a brief matrix. And as mentioned, we have personal statement workshop next week, and the week after that is your research plan. So we'll go into this in depth in those individual presentations. But really briefly, on your personal statement, your intellectual merit will describe you. This is where you talk about your background, your motivation, your abilities, your research experience, and how you've prepared as a student, a scholar, as a researcher. What are your achievements? What is your leadership experience? What are your future goals, both scholarly and professional, and again, as a leader? Your broader impacts on that personal statement will be your background as a leader, your personal story, your participation in the community. So this can be hopefully to some degree in science, but even more broadly, if you are have been a longtime volunteer at a local nonprofit that isn't STEM oriented, but you've been participating in the community, you've been a leader, and however you're defining being a leader in those church or social organizations in the community, or here on campus, or at your undergrad institution, this is the place to talk about that. And if you have outreach or leadership experience in communicating science and broadening participation in science in one way or another, ideal place to talk about that. Now, shifting over to your research plan, your intellectual merit will be describing the innovation, the rigor, the creativity of your proposed research project. What new knowledge are you trying to create here? What are you trying to, what are the questions that you're trying to answer? And how will that contribute to your discipline and science in general in those inter and cross-disciplinary connections? Your broader impacts with your research plan will be the foundational nature and relevance and importance to society. Why is this important outside of the academic journals that you plan to publish in and the other researchers that you plan to collaborate with? How will this impact the community around you? Okay, some advice on these statements. The GRFP is not just looking for scientists, but future leaders. And leader can be a lot of different things here. How are you going to be a leader in your discipline, or in your community, or in public service? This goes in a number of different directions. And so you want to define how you've been experienced in leadership and how you hope to grow as a leader. Show your leadership potential, how you are a self-starter, and how you've taken initiative in your experience and your ability to build community and collaboration. That doesn't necessarily have to be specifically in science, but if you have examples in your background to share more broadly with community building and collaboration, talk about that. You want to be yourself and convey who you are in the narrative. The potential of individuals is evaluated, not just the proposed research, because they're investing in you, not in your research. You're going to conduct the research. They're investing in you, not your PI, and not your research lab or your institution that you are attending. They're investing in you. And please use scientific terms, use the terminology that is necessary and that is broadly known in your area, but don't be too jargon heavy or overly technical. Reviewers won't be experts in your field, especially in your niche area. So you might be a biologist who is reviewed by a civil engineer or a physics student who is reviewed by a political scientist. There's going to be multiple reviewers per application, but that gives you a good illustration. It's going to be a scientist with STEM experience, but they might not understand your specific area. So don't use those niche jargon words. In fact, what makes a really smooth essay here is when you're able to take a complex idea and break it down into language that your creative writing English major roommate can understand as well. They might not understand the minutia and the specifics of how you're going to conduct the research and what you're going to be doing and all the science behind it, but they can read your research statement and say, I have a good idea of what they're trying to achieve here. That's a sign of a well-written statement. Now, reference letters. This is very, very important. 2 reference letters are required. It is recommended by the NSF that you have 3. You will have the ability to list 5 recommenders in there, and you will rate them first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So let's say that your second, third, and fourth recommender had emergencies and they weren't able to upload their letters on time. Well, you saw that 5th recommendation there, that becomes your second. So you would still have 2 recommendations there. These references must be from non-family members and highly preferable here from professors and researchers. They need to have a familiarity with you as a person and you as a scholar, as a researcher. This does not have to be necessarily faculty that you're studying under right now. You want those who are going to be able to speak most to your ability. So if in October, when you're submitting your application, you're a first-year graduate student, you're barely getting to know your PI, your faculty mentor, but you worked in an undergrad research lab in a research context with another PI, with other faculty who are very, very familiar with your ability to research, to conduct research, and you as a student, they will be ideal. That said, if you do have a connection with your graduate faculty mentor, they are going to be a key partner in your application, and ideally one of your references. Important here is if your reference writer is from industry, you want to coach them on what the NSF-GRFP is. So some of you may be coming to graduate school after a number of years working in a research lab or for a government or a nonprofit organization, such as like a water conservancy organization. And you're going to have your supervisor or your lab manager write you a letter of recommendation. That's great. They just need to understand this is not a John was such a great employee, showed up on time every day, I would hire him again, but this is going to be more of he was a good researcher. Let me talk to you about his research skills that he exhibited in our corporate lab. Okay, some important considerations for you to take into account. As I mentioned, the NSF is not looking to fund your research team or your PI or your institution. They're looking to fund you. That goes into the mobility of this fellowship program. This can go with you to any qualifying institution in the United States. And some students do leave in the middle of their PhD. They find a PI that is even more familiar with their niche area or better suited to them with the twists and turns that starting their research has done. And the GRFP will move with them to another institution. You do need to have previous research experience and evidence of research productivity. And this is going to vary by individual and by your area of study as well. But research experience to some degree is pretty necessary here. Published articles are helpful. They will not hurt you, but you can remain a competitive candidate for the GRFP without having published. Of course, if you're under review, if you are in the middle of writing at the time of application, talk about that if relevant to your statements. That can help you as well. If you are in the middle of submitting articles, mention the publications that you're submitting to. And you do need a strong GPA. I hesitate to list, and the NSF also is hesitant to list a specific must be X GPA or higher. because you may have had a rough start when you began undergrad. You might have had a really rough first year, and then you found your niche. You found your major that's really a good fit for you, and you hit the ground running. You settled in on campus. You found that sense of belonging. You got your schedule worked out. You found that good balance of classes. Don't take all biology classes, put some English and history in there to balance it out. And then once you got into your major, you were just an all-star student. So your cumulative GPA might not be as high as your major GPA, but your major GPA could be super competitive. So I leave that to you and your faculty mentor or advisor to determine what you would call a strong GPA. I'll mention here really quickly, I gave you a scenario of, you start college, you had these challenges, but you overcame those challenges. Those might be the ideal challenges to talk about in your personal statement about you face these hurdles, and here's how you worked to overcome them, overcome the challenges. That could be a great piece of your narrative. The NSF does have outreach goals here to attract a diverse and qualified applicant pool with particular attention to students attending minority serving institutions. So whether you're going to graduate school, whether you did undergrad or part of undergrad at an MSI, students studying in EPSCoR jurisdictions, and I'll go into EPSCoR in just a second, and non-traditional education tracks. So students who are going down in a newer interdisciplinary area or a newer niche of a traditional STEM field, like a newer area of biology, for example, or non-traditional students in I spent 20 years in industry and I'm going through a career pivot, encouraged to apply. So EPSCoR stands for Established Programs to Stimulate Competitive Research, the NSF initiative to enhance research competitiveness in STEM research in designated states and territories. So these are areas that the NSF views as not as highly competitive as other United States regions, and they would really want to bolster those areas. So that might be where you will be going to school as a grad student, where you did go to school as an undergrad, or where you grew up. So if you are from or completed education in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, it may be an integral part of your story in how you discuss those various elements. You might not have had the same STEM learning opportunities as other students have. So these are the different states and territories: Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Guam, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, U.S. Virgin Islands, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming. We see in here United States territories, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam. So when we talked about eligibility must be United States citizen, national, or permanent resident, that does include United States territories such as the United States Virgin Islands, Guam, and other areas. Non-traditional students. You are welcome and highly encouraged to apply if you are eligible for this fellowship program. In your narrative, though, you do want to address the why factor. Why are you going back to school? Why now? Why this area? What was your motivation to take this step? What do you hope to accomplish? So you're going to come in with a very unique life experience, professional experience, and these are going to be some compelling talking points that your reviewers will want to hear a little bit more about. And in my experience working with non-traditional students, this really does build a very nice and very compelling story to build into your narrative. Some common application weaknesses: an unorganized personal statement that does not tell a clear story. Your narrative is jumbled. There's not a theme there. I generally recommend that you start with where you've been, where you are now, and end with where you're going in those future goals. It's a nice flow with a timeline, but you don't have to do that, but you just want to make sure you're organized. You can use subheaders, including those headers for broader impacts and intellectual merit. A research statement that is unclear, incomplete, or unpolished. Too much or too little detail. You want to be Goldilocks. You want to find that just right space there. Failure to own your research. This is very important here. Students are oftentimes very communal in how they talk about their research. They say, we as a research lab did this. My PI and our team accomplished this. Working in this lab, we did XYZ. That's great. Talk about what you did as a lab, as a research team, but what was your specific contribution to that? That's what we also want to hear about. And you want to own the research. So it's not just we, but you need to talk about I did this, I did that. I was this particular cog in an overall machine. And lacking recognition of research risks. We talked about this already. What's your plan B? What's the risky element in your research plan? And what will you do if you have to pivot for whatever risky reason? Dense writing that is difficult to understand or is uninteresting. Too much jargon and failure to address your broader impacts. Students are generally pretty good about talking about intellectual merit, how this is broadening science, broadening understanding and knowledge in your particular discipline, but those broader impacts that tend to be between the two, the greater challenge. And our final workshop in this series will be on broader impacts, so join us in 3 weeks from now for that. What can you do now? So I have a mix of students here. We've got current undergrads, we've got first year or incoming graduate students and current graduate students. So speaking to the undergrads in the room, continue working on your research projects. If you're here at the University of Utah as an undergrad student, and be involved with the different initiatives on campus, like the Vice President of Research. There are various initiatives like the RED, the Research Education Program. Undergraduate research in undergraduate studies is an excellent place to be involved as well. And I apologize for changing that. Okay, so be involved with research in one way or another. Continue that involvement. Identify potential reference writers. You want to do that early on. Reference writers, you want to give them time. You want to make sure they're comfortable. You want to make sure that they feel like they are a good fit for this as well. It's not just you determining, are they a good fit? They need to feel good and like they are the appropriate person to provide a recommendation for you. Develop your research question. As an undergrad, you don't need to have this fleshed out in finite detail. If you're applying as a second-year grad student, the expectation is going to be that you have a much clearer research plan than when you're an undergrad, just based on your level of experience. So you, as an undergrad, you do need to be able to articulate your interests and what you hope to accomplish. What are the bigger research questions that you're grappling with? And articulate a grad school plan. Some of you here are juniors. You're going to be applying in October as a senior, and you're going to be applying before you submit applications to grad school. And so you don't know necessarily where you're going to go to grad school. You might not have gone and met with faculty yet, a potential faculty mentor at that time. You may have been in contact, you might not have, but you do need to be able to speak to your interests and your opportunities and maybe some of the schools that you're looking at and why you're looking at those particular areas to study. As a current or incoming graduate student, work with your faculty advisor or PI to develop your research plan. As a grad student, they are going to be your primary partner in all fellowship applications. They're going to be your partner in your research plan. They're going to be the first person that you have review your research plan draft and provide you feedback. So work with them, hone that relationship there as well. Speak specifically about your grad school choice. Why did you choose the University of Utah? Or if you're leaving here to go to another institution, why did you choose that institution? Why did you choose that program? And have a firm research plan that, as mentioned, there's going to be a higher expectation for continuing graduate students to have a much more succinct and put together research plan than an undergrad. Everyone can read the 2022 solicitation. It's up on the GRFP website. The 2023 application solicitation comes out at the end of June or early July. in that time frame. That's also leading up to August when the portal will open to start building your application. Make a plan between now and October deadline. Give yourself some milestone dates of when you want to have drafts done, when you're going to have them reviewed, who's going to review them, provide you with feedback, and you want to schedule a couple of those drafting experiences, getting feedback and doing edits. You want to give yourself time so that you're not applying under a deadline, feeling that pressure. You want to give yourself time. Identify your strengths and weaknesses as a researcher and as a student. So there is nothing wrong with saying, I'm coming into this research program. I intend to research XYZ. I am very strong with my skills here. And during the first couple of years of coursework before I start research, I do need to develop stronger skills in XYZ. And I'm working with my faculty mentor to get the right experiences to become stronger and more proficient in that area. That's a great recognition in your statement of your skills and how you're addressing any shortfall that you might have in what you need to complete your research project. Move any ongoing research projects along. If you have any pending articles, move those along. Thematically organize your personal statement. What will those 3 pages look like? And begin drafting statements early and go through multiple drafts with your faculty mentor and peers. So we'll now go into a series of frequently asked questions. These may answer some of your questions, but of course, at the conclusion of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time to take your questions that you may have that are unique to your situation that was not covered in the presentation. So firstly, how many times can I apply? Well, as an undergraduate, you can apply as many times as you would like prior to being enrolled in any graduate program. So the only hitch here is if you are awarded it, you have to start grad school that following fall. So if you apply this October, you need to be prepared to go to school if you're awarded the GRFP in fall 2024. Once you begin as a graduate student, you can only apply once. So those of you who are going to be first year or second year grad students this October, you can only apply once. So if you applied last year as a first year, then you would not be eligible to this year as a second year student. So keep that in mind. And students in a bachelor's to master's joint program, an accelerated bachelor to master's program, can apply once. I'm graduating soon with my bachelor's degree, but plan to take a year off. Will the NSF allow me to defer the award? No, generally speaking, the award cannot be deferred. The only exception to this is if you are enrolled in a graduate program and you are approved by your graduate institution for a medical or military leave of absence. Medical and military deferrals are the only ones allowable with the NSF-GRFP. I'm starting grad school this fall, but I've taken a year of non-matriculated courses. Does this count as time in a graduate program? No. The NSF will only count time in a matriculated graduate program. So that is when you are officially accepted into that master's or doctoral program and you are degree seeking. So if you are post-bachelor's degree, but being accepted into a master's or doctoral program, and you're taking some grad courses, you're fine. That time does not count as time in a graduate program. Applying as a grad student, is it more important for me to reflect on my graduate experience rather than my undergrad? What's the secret formula? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a secret formula. A very student affairs-y response here might be to say the secret formula for you is what is best for you and your experience, which doesn't help a whole lot, but it is still very true. You want to focus on the experience that is meaningful to you. One thing that I mentioned earlier in the presentation is you might be applying this fall as a first-year grad student. You might have just graduated a couple weeks ago with your bachelor's degree, and you have this rich experience. But when you apply as a grad student in October, you're going to have 6 to 8 weeks in a lab. That's not a lot of experience compared to your undergrad experience. So you want to reflect on what's most meaningful to you. And that also goes for recommendation writers. Who's going to be able to write you the best recommendation? So those are some things to think about when you look for what's that secret formula. I'm in the first year of a PhD program, but previously earned a master's. Am I eligible? Maybe. Having a master's completed will make an applicant ineligible. However, there's a caveat here. If the master's degree completion was followed by a continuous interruption in graduate studies of 2 or more years. So, for example, we have students who applied for the GRFP and are awarded it, who they studied biomedical engineering. Then they got an MBA. They worked in industry for a number of years, and now they're deciding they want to go back to school and get a PhD. Well, there's been more than 2 years between completing that MBA or a master's in engineering or what have you, and starting that PhD program. So as long as there's 2 or more years in between the completion and the start of the PhD, you're good to go. As I look forward to graduate school, I'd like to concurrently earn an MBA or another professional degree like an MD or a JD, MSW. Is this allowable? No, unfortunately, this is not. You cannot be pursuing a professional non-research degree as an NSF fellow. So this is something that is in our guidelines. If you do start an MBA program, for example, while you're an NSF fellow, you can lose your NSF fellowship. So you can take business classes. You cannot earn a business degree or another professional degree during that time. Are there citizenship requirements? Yes, you must be a United States citizen, permanent resident, or national of the United States or United States territories. The citizenship requirement is non-negotiable. Always get questions on this. I have this unique situation. I'm working on citizenship. I'm not there yet. Well, you're not eligible. Unfortunately, this is federal regulation here, and the University of Utah and myself, we have no point of negotiation on this. Can I apply for the GRFP if I'm planning to attend a foreign institution? Well, no. Awardees must be attending a United States institution of higher education. So you must be enrolled at a University of Utah or another institution here in the United States. However, here's the caveat here. You can conduct research in a foreign country. You can collaborate with researchers at another university. I have a GRFP fellow, a very, very senior in her fellowship, and she's going to be doing some collaboration and research with a university in Denmark. That is completely in line with the GRFP because she will be enrolled here at the University of Utah. Her PI is here at the University of Utah. She's just conducting research elsewhere and collaborating with other scientists who happen to be at another institution. I'm applying as an undergrad, and I'm not sure where I'll be attending grad school next year. Will this be a problem? No. The NSF does understand that applicants, particularly undergrads applying as they're starting their senior year, might not have their plans settled and may have admissions applications under review or not even submitted yet. You're not bound to remain at the same institution throughout the entire period of the fellowship. Fellows can and do move from one institution to another during their fellowship. I'm not planning to attend an Ivy League or elite university. Will I have a chance? Absolutely. The NSF values diversity among institutions, programs, topics, and people. Included in this diversity are MSIs and EBSCOR territories, among other types of institutions. The award decisions for the NSF-GRFP are publicly available. You can take a look at the institutions that students are studying at or will be studying at for grad school. So if you will be attending another institution and you want to see, did they get a GRFP this year? You can look that up to see that. One thing I will note here, we do have a former program officer on faculty, and we were discussing the distribution of awards. There's about 2,000 awards made every year. And there are a lot that go to MIT and Northwestern and UCLA. And her comment to me was, the only difference here is those programs require every engineering student, every chemistry student, every physics student who is eligible to apply for the GRFP. So it's not to say that their students have a better chance. Is More applications leads to more awards. Fewer applications lead to fewer awards. So that's an effort that we're trying to do here, more applications for more awards. I've worked on papers not ready for publication. Will this be a problem? Is it a problem if I don't have any publications at all? Having publications is helpful, and it will only help and not hurt your application, but they are not required. And you can still be a successful awardee without any publications, especially as an undergrad applicant. It is understandable that you might not have had these opportunities yet to publish. However, if you do have anything in the pipeline, you might be finalizing it with some co-authors or a faculty researcher. You might be under review and doing edits. You might and going through the peer review process, or you might be going through the primary submission to various journals. If that is the case, talk about, I've written an article on, or with my lab, I co-authored a paper on XYZ and is currently submitted to X journal and Y journal. We're just waiting for feedback at this point. That's great to talk about as well. I'm an undergrad and I've worked in a research lab outside of my program. Can the PI write a letter of recommendation? Yes, absolutely. Chances are they're going to be a strong recommender for you. You want individuals with your scholarly and research background, familiarity with your scholarly and research background. So if you spent a lot of time working in another PI's lab as an undergrad, they will be a strong recommendation for you. I've worked in the industry before heading to grad school. Can an industry professional write a letter of recommendation? Yes, and as mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that they are aware of what the GRFP is and what they need to talk about. This isn't they were a good employee, I would hire them again, but more so, let me talk about them as a researcher and as a scientist in a professional setting. When are applications due? They are due in October. As mentioned earlier, the portal will open in August. So you can start going in, you build your profile in research.gov, start entering your various things, uploading your transcripts, and then the deadline is in October, and it's a series of deadlines depending on which panel. Chemistry will be on one day, engineering will be on another deadline day. So you want to identify your deadline, and I'd say mark your calendar for a week earlier. We never expect it to happen, but we have upload problems, we have Wi-Fi problems, we have computers that crash. And every year I hear horror stories of my Wi-Fi went out right at 4:55 when I was trying to get this in by 5 o'clock. Well, if your Wi-Fi goes out, the NSF, they still say you had plenty of time before 4:55 to do this, and we gave you those deadlines ahead of time. So always aim to submit several days before the deadline, if at all possible. And the applicants will be notified of the results in April. This tends to be early April. In a lucky year, it's the end of March. So you will be notified one of three things. We were unable to award this to you, you were awarded, or you are recognized as an honorable mention, which means if we had enough money, we would have awarded it to you, but we had to draw the line somewhere. And then students or awardees will have a month to accept their awards. And there are some students that do decline their awards for various reasons. So when that happens, after the declines come in and the acceptance deadline has passed, some of the honorable mentions might be awarded after all. So that is a possibility. Okay, we have 3 upcoming workshops for our summer series. Next week, we will be discussing personal statements, and I would encourage you, if you're attending today and you're going to come next week, or if you're watching this recording and you're going to move on to the next recording, take some time to think about, what do I want to talk about? What are the points I want to bring up about my background, where I've been, where I am now in college, and where I plan to be in the next 30 years. Take some time to jot down some notes, and that will be really helpful as we go through the presentation about personal statements, for you to identify different things that you can add or remove, as well as things to elaborate on, or various mechanics and techniques you can utilize. Same with your research statement. That will be in 2 weeks from today, talking about your research statement, broader impacts, your intellectual merit, what to include, what's important to talk about there. And then on the 8th, we will discuss broader impacts. This will be broader impacts for your research and for your personal statement. So specifically about that bigger picture, not just your intellectual merit. So please join us. And then this fall, we will be doing a series of writing workshops, which will be come in with a draft. We're going to have current NSF fellows help with reviews and provide advice. We're going to invite your fellow peers attending with you to provide you with some collegial advice on your drafts and invite you to provide feedback to others on their drafts. That is a very important part of the writing process, to go through that draft review several times. And so we'll have a series of daytime, evening, and weekend workshops in August and early October. So keep an eye out for those notifications. And please reach out. All of these recordings and various resources will be put on the University of Utah's NSF-GRFP website, which is nsf-grfp.utah.edu. Please visit the GRFP's official website, nsf-grfp.org. No dash in the .org address. And you'll find here also the portal to get into the application, the solicitation, as well as other resources that are highly valuable to you as well. And if you would like to schedule an appointment to talk about your application, draft review, or how to strategize your application process, please feel free to reach out to me, fellowships@gradschool.utah.edu. Okay.